Moira Alderson with the BBC News. The Russian and Ukrainian armies are fighting fierce battles in several places close to Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, as Moscow's multi-pronged invasion progresses. Ukrainian forces have launched a counterattack against Russian airborne troops who took control of Hostomel airfield just 15 kilometres from the centre of Kyiv. More details from our correspondent Paul Adams in the capital.
We know that Russian paratroopers are ensconced at an airbase, an airport, and have been there since before light this morning. And they are well established. They've been seen by other journalists. There has been, I think at one point during the day, an attempt by the Ukrainians to throw them out of that location, but I don't think that has succeeded. And the question is what they're there for. Are they there waiting for the arrival of Russian armour, which is coming down from the north, or possibly as a kind of springboard for operations in the capital?
Not far to the north, Russian forces who entered from Belarus have been fighting the Ukrainians near the former nuclear power plant at Chernobyl. The Ukrainian military says Russia's strategy is to block off the capital Kyiv while creating a land corridor along the south coast to the annexed Crimea Peninsula and the Transnistria region of Moldova. Thousands of Ukrainians have left their homes to find safety following the first day of intense fighting. In Kyiv, where an overnight curfew is in place, many have taken refuge in metro stations, which are remaining open to serve as bomb shelters. The number of casualties is unclear. Sviatoslav Yurash is an MP for President Zelensky's party. He told the BBC there were many Ukrainians who wanted to stay and fight for their country.
There are huge queues of people getting ready for battle, and there are people that essentially are staying and fighting for our capital. I am staying as well. I was a part today of the effort to get weapons into the hands of those who want to try and defend Ukraine in the capital in any way possible.
President Biden has announced further sanctions on Russia, which he said went further than anything that had ever been done and would impose severe costs. He said there would be stringent new limits on what could be exported in Russia, with G7 countries stopping Russian businesses from conducting trade in major foreign currencies. More details from Barbara Pletasher in Washington.
He said these measures would really squeeze Russia. And he said, get back to me in a month and you'll see that ultimately if we are able to stand together, meaning we, the West, and not sort of cave in if our own people start to feel pain, then Mr. Putin will have to either decide that he's going to respond to that pressure or he'll have to accept that he's going to be a second-rate power. So it was all quite sort of strong language, but he did talk about this happening over a period of time.
Barbara Pletasher in Washington, BBC News. European Union leaders have agreed a significantly tougher package of sanctions, which they say would have severe consequences on Russia. They measure the target Russia's financial, energy and transport sectors. They also impose export controls and sanction more Russians linked to the war and the Kremlin. But there have been disagreements over whether the EU should go further, as Katia Adler in Brussels explains.
All 27 leaders have signed up for a new expanded sanction package. They want other sanctions against Belarus. But Germany, Italy, so reliant on gas imports and business ties with Russia, they say that they'd like to keep the toughest sanctions for another day. Others accuse them of self-interest. And then you have other countries neighbouring Ukraine worrying about a new migration crisis in Europe in case Ukrainians try to flee the country. And they've been appealing tonight for solidarity.
The office of the French President, Emmanuel Macron, says he's spoken to Vladimir Putin and demanded an immediate end to military operations. The Élysée Palace said Mr. Macron called Mr. Putin following a conversation with Ukraine's president. A very different account of the conversation has been given by the Kremlin, which said Mr. Putin gave an exhaustive explanation of his reasons for ordering forces into Ukraine. A human rights monitoring group in Russia says more than 1,500 anti-war protesters have been arrested at rallies in cities across the country. Videos posted online showed hundreds of people marching and chanting "No to War" in places including Moscow and St. Petersburg. Stock markets around the world fell sharply at first following the Russian invasion, but the Dow Jones in New York closed in positive territory. The price of natural gas in Europe has shot up by more than a third. Europe relies on Russia for both oil and gas, with 40% of its gas supplies flowing through Ukrainian territory. That's the latest BBC News.